Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to talk about the two-factor theory of emotion and social comparison and sort of how those two are related. These are concepts that I was teaching about in my social psychology class the other day, and it occurred to me that these are things that a lot of us do and can really have an impact on anxiety if that's something that we struggle with. So, to back up a little bit, the two-factor theory of emotion is basically this idea that emotions are the result of both our physiological arousal. Those are like internal experiences that we have, such as maybe a pounding heart or sweaty palms or a pit in our stomach. So it includes that, but then it also includes our cognitive appraisal of those internal feelings. So it's basically our interpretation or identification and sort of labeling that internal experience as a specific emotion by the way we think about it. So, for example, if you do feel a pounding heart and sweaty palms and you're legitimately in a dangerous situation, you are going to interpret that as fear, those physiological symptoms. However, if you are about to engage in sort of a thrilling activity like riding a roller coaster, then you might interpret that as excitement. So how does this relate to social comparison theory? Basically, social comparison theory is this idea that we often evaluate ourselves and our abilities by comparing ourselves to others. And so this can be upward to people who seem to be doing better than us, or downward, comparing ourselves to people who seem to be doing worse than us. And this is not a process that we're necessarily conscious of, right? This is something that is occurring in our subconscious and is done automatically. And so this relates to the two-factor theory because we often evaluate these thoughts, feelings, and behaviors by comparing ourselves to others. And so in that comparison, we are sort of interpreting our own physiological experiences and what those mean. So, for example, this relates to anxiety in the sense that people with anxiety might engage in more negative social comparisons, and that in turn leads to increased feelings of stress and worry. So when we have anxiety, those automatic thoughts tend toward the negative side of the spectrum. So for example, somebody with social anxiety might be comparing themselves to others who they perceive as being more outgoing or confident. And then this comparison will exacerbate their feelings of feeling inadequate or having some discomfort in social situations. This is also related to a fear of failure, where people might avoid situations in which they are more likely to perform poorly as compared to others. And so this avoidance further reinforces those beliefs and those negative self-perceptions, and that can potentially lead to worse anxiety symptoms. So what can you do about this? Basically, if you find that you engage in a lot of comparison to others, whether that's just in your life, comparing yourselves as a parent or a professional or whatnot, or maybe you spend a lot of time on social media and it seems like other people's lives are better, or they have more opportunities, or they're happier. We need to be really intentional about exposing ourselves to those things and being aware of the way we sort of interpret and think about things. So first of all, just know your triggers. Pay attention to what types of comparisons tend to elicit anxiety or other feelings that are distressing or don't make you feel good about yourself. If you're using a lot of social media, remember that posts are designed for attention. So most of the posts are going to be edited and sort of someone's highlight reel of what is going on in their lives. And then if you're comparing that to your real lived experience, which is includes both positive and negative aspects, then that is going to obviously make you feel worse. We can also just start expressing gratitude for the things that we have in our lives. What we pay attention to grows. And so if we're constantly focusing on the negative, we are going to start observing and noticing more of that. However, if we shift that and we're intentional about focusing on what we do have and what we are grateful for and appreciative of, then that just sort of neutralizes things a bit more and allows our focus to be more positive. And then really just to set limits and boundaries around your social media use, or if it's more of a real life situation, maybe tuning into sort of how you feel after interacting with certain people. And if there are people that you come away from those interactions and you feel worse about yourself, just try to be aware of what it is that is making you feel that way. Are you comparing yourself to them and sort of interpreting those feelings as you are inferior in some capacity? So I hope this is helpful. And, just being aware of these things can really provide insight into the negative impact of social comparison on anxiety, and can really just bring awareness to sort of your interpretation or appraisal of your physiological experiences and the things that you feel in your body, because that's a really important connection to make. So feel free to reach out with any questions, or leave a comment with sharing your own experiences. I do have a high functioning anxiety workbook that is available for sale on my website, catharticspacecounseling.com. And you can also schedule a free 15-minute video consultation with me if you feel like these are things you really struggle with and you're interested in maybe working one-on-one. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next time.